After turning 70, many elders begin to see the stark differences between a daughter-in-law and a son-in-law. When people are in their 60s, they are often still in good health, able to take care of themselves, and may even continue working without depending on anyone. In fact, many seniors are quite valued by their children at this stage, as they can help with household chores and babysitting. However, once they reach 70, their health tends to decline, and they start to feel less welcome, especially if they don't have a pension or savings. Their presence may seem unnecessary, no matter where they go. Moreover, many elderly people still cling to traditional values, drawing strict lines in family relationships, with outdated feudal beliefs occasionally surfacing. Based on the customs and behaviors of the elderly, we can observe significant differences in how they perceive their daughter-in-law and son-in-law. 1. On companionship, a daughter-in-law is expected to accompany, while a son-in-law's visits feel more like a guest appearance. When seniors are still in good health, family gatherings, especially during holidays, usually revolve around the elderly cooking and preparing special local treats for their children to take home. Once they can no longer cook, it often falls to the daughter-in-law to take on that role. There's a commonly accepted notion: the eldest brother is like the father, and the eldest sister-in-law is like the mother. This means that the daughter-in-law, especially the eldest one, naturally takes charge of cooking and organizing family gatherings. On the other hand, when a son-in-law visits, it's typically seen as him returning home with his wife, like a guest. Particularly if the daughter married into a distant family, visits are rare. When the son-in-law does come, the excitement lasts only for a few days before they return home. Even when the elderly fall ill, it's usually the son and, by extension, the daughter-in-law, who take on more of the responsibility for care. 2. On finances, giving money to the daughter-in-law feels like keeping it within the family, but giving it to the son-in-law feels like it's leaving the family. By the time a person reaches 70, their daughter-in-law is likely in her 40s or 50s, and the marriage between the son and daughter-in-law is well established. Elders often choose to hand over financial matters to their son. However, if the son is not in charge of his household finances, the money may go directly to the daughter-in-law. Why give it to her? Because the son brought her into the family, and she is no longer considered an outsider. Money handed to her is seen as staying within the family. With a son-in-law, however, the situation is different. Since the daughter married out, she is seen as becoming more distant from the family. Many traditions, including family genealogies, record the descendants of sons but rarely mention those of daughters. Even the name of the son-in-law is often excluded from such records. This creates an unspoken bias, with the son-in-law being viewed as an outsider. Elders may be willing to pass down wealth to a daughter if she is their only child, but directly giving money to a son-in-law is something they are often reluctant to do. 3. On bloodlines, while elders recognize that all grandchildren carry their lineage, they often place a special emphasis on grandsons over granddaughters. From the perspective of many elders, raising a grandson is seen as natural and praiseworthy. In contrast, raising a granddaughter or an external grandchild often draws criticism. This is because grandsons are considered the carriers of the family name, continuing the ancestral line. Granddaughters, whose surname is that of the son-in-law, are viewed as more distanced from the family. No matter how modern one's thinking may be, some elders still find it hard to shake off the belief that having no grandson is akin to losing the family's legacy. As a result, elders who are particularly attached to their grandsons tend to favor their daughters-in-law. A daughter-in-law who gives birth to a son is often treated as the family's precious treasure. In contrast, the son-in-law's children, even if male, usually don't receive the same level of attention from the elder. 4. On living arrangements, it is considered natural for an elder to live with a son, but moving in with a daughter and son-in-law can feel awkward. After 70, when mobility declines or a spouse passes away, elders need to consider where to spend the remainder of their lives. In many rural areas, elders often prefer to live with their son rather than their daughter, even if the daughter lives in a nearby village and the son is in the city. Traditionally, living with a son is more accepted, as it's seen as part of the natural order of things. While staying with the son, the elder is also staying with the daughter-in-law. Even if there are occasional tensions, elders generally find ways to smooth things over. Living with a daughter and son-in-law, on the other hand, often feels uncomfortable. In some cases, son-in-laws who paid a large dowry for their marriage may feel they've already done their part in caring for their wife's parents and are less willing to support them in old age. Elders may feel like they are intruding if they live with a son-in-law, and unless it is a mutual agreement between all parties, it is often seen as inappropriate. 5. On funeral arrangements, a son and daughter-in-law handling funeral duties is seen as proper, while a son-in-law's involvement may feel like a failure of the family. There's an old saying, a son-in-law should not attend the grave, doing so disgraces the ancestors. This reflects an ancient fear that if a son-in-law became too involved in the family's affairs, it might result in family wealth being taken away. In the past, if a family had no son, inheritance would go to a nephew rather than a daughter or son-in-law. Though times have changed, many elders still prefer that funeral arrangements be made by their son and daughter-in-law, with the son-in-law playing a more supportive role. 6. Times are changing, don't cling too tightly to outdated traditions. As the saying goes, the only constant in the world is change. Once past 70, it's important for elders to stay flexible and not stubbornly hold on to the belief that inheritance should only pass through sons. Today, families are smaller, often with only 1 or 2 children, and many families only have daughters. Relying on old traditions in a world where social norms have shifted will only lead to heartache. If you want to enjoy a peaceful and happy later life, 2 things are essential: filial children and an open-minded attitude. Accumulating wealth and goodwill are key, but it's just as important to rid oneself of biases. Filial piety, while guided by tradition, must also adapt with the times, as must our approach to aging.